Hello everyone. Today I have a story that started as an ordinary work trip and ended with the fact that I will never be able to look at my wife the way I used to. This is a story about what can happen if you get home just an hour earlier. I had always trusted Lena completely. 7 years of marriage, 7 years of what I believed was perfect honesty between us. We shared everything, our dreams, our fears, our daily struggles. At least, that's what I thought. But lately, something had shifted. It started small, tiny changes that I almost convinced myself were just my imagination. Lena had begun taking these mysterious, personal days whenever I traveled for work. She'd smile brightly and say she needed time to recharge, to have the house to herself. Her phone, which used to lie carelessly on counters and tables, now always rested face down. Always. The conversations that once flowed freely between us became shorter, more guarded. When I'd ask about her day, she'd give me surface-level answers. Oh, just the usual stuff, or nothing exciting happened. Her laughter, once so genuine and warm, now sounded slightly forced, as if she were performing rather than truly feeling joy. There were other signs, too. New clothes appearing in her wardrobe that she'd brush off with casual explanations. Late-night texts that would make her face light up in ways that my messages never seemed to anymore. The way she'd quickly switch screens when I walked into the room while she was on her laptop. My gut kept whispering that something was wrong, but my heart refused to listen. This was Lena, my Lena. The woman who cried during romantic movies, who left me little notes in my lunch bag, who had promised to love me through everything life could throw at us. Yet the doubt continued to grow, like a shadow creeping across everything we had built together. That Tuesday morning felt different from the moment I woke up. I had a business trip scheduled to the neighboring city, a full day of meetings that would keep me away from home until late evening. It was routine, the kind of trip I'd made dozens of times before. But Lena's reaction wasn't routine at all. When I mentioned the trip over breakfast, her entire demeanor changed. The slight tension that had become her constant companion seemed to melt away instantly. Her smile became genuine for the first time in weeks, not the careful, measured smile I'd grown accustomed to, but the radiant, unguarded expression I remembered from our early days together. "That sounds important," she said, her voice carrying an enthusiasm that caught me off guard. She moved around the kitchen with a lightness in her step that I hadn't seen in months. "I hope everything goes well with your meetings." She packed my lunch with unusual care, adding little touches she hadn't bothered with in ages, my favorite cookies, a thermos of the good coffee, even a small note tucked into bag. When I kissed her goodbye at the door, she held me a fraction longer than usual, her fingers lingering on my jacket collar. "Drive safely," she whispered against my ear, and for a moment, I felt like we were newlyweds again. But as I pulled out of our driveway and glanced back at the house, I caught sight of her silhouette in our bedroom window. She was already reaching for her phone, her movements quick and eager. The image burned itself into my memory. My wife, watching my car disappear around the corner, phone pressed to her ear, speaking to someone who clearly wasn't me. The drive toward the city felt endless, my mind racing with possibilities I didn't want to consider. 2 kilometers into my journey, I couldn't fight the feeling anymore. It clawed at my chest, demanding attention. Every rational thought told me to keep driving, to trust my wife, to focus on my work meetings. But something deeper, something primal, made me pull over to the shoulder of the road. My hands trembled as I gripped the steering wheel. The morning sun felt too bright, the ordinary suburban street around me suddenly surreal. Cars passed by with their unknowing drivers heading to normal days with normal problems. I envied them. Making a decision that would change everything, I executed a careful U-turn and drove back toward home, my heart hammering against my ribs. I parked 2 blocks away, hidden behind a delivery truck, and walked the rest of the distance on unsteady legs. Our house looked exactly as I'd left it, the same cheerful blue shutters, the same carefully tended garden, the same welcome mat we'd chosen together 3 years ago. But everything felt different now, charged with potential disaster. I used my key as quietly as possible, the familiar click of a lock sounding thunderous in the morning silence. The hallway stretched before me like a tunnel, each step on our hardwood floors a potential betrayal of my presence. I could hear voices now, Lena's musical laugh mixing with something deeper, unfamiliar. A man's voice. In my home. In the middle of a Tuesday morning when I was supposed to be gone. My legs felt like they might give out, but I forced myself to move toward our bedroom, toward the sound of my world potentially falling apart. What I saw through that partially open bedroom door will haunt me forever. There, on the bed that Lena and I had shared for 7 years, sat stranger. He was tall, well-dressed, with the kind of confident posture that spoke of someone completely comfortable in my home. His jacket hung casually on my chair, the same chair where I sat every morning to put on my shoes for work. But it wasn't just his presence that destroyed me. It was Lena. She was transformed, radiating a happiness I realized I hadn't seen directed at me in months. Her laugh was genuine and free as she responded to his jokes. Her hand moved unconsciously to smooth her hair, a gesture I knew she made when she felt beautiful, desired. Their fingers were intertwined as they sat facing each other, their conversation intimate and easy. This wasn't just a physical betrayal. This was emotional intimacy, the kind we used to share, now given freely to someone else. The casual way they touched, the comfortable silence between their words, the way she leaned into him, it all spoke of familiarity, of a relationship that had been growing while mine had been dying. I stood frozen in that hallway, watching my marriage crumble in real time. Part of me wanted to storm in, to confront them both, to demand explanations and apologies. Another part wanted to retreat, to pretend I'd never seen this, to live in denial rather than face this brutal reality. Instead, I did something that surprised even me. I quietly backed away, slipped out of the house as silently as I'd entered, and walked back to my car in a daze. 3 days later, while Lena was out, probably with him, I had divorce papers delivered to our home. My phone rang constantly after that. She left voicemails filled with tears and confusion, begging me to explain what had gone wrong, pleading for a chance to talk. But I never told her what I'd seen that Tuesday morning. Because deep down, I knew she already understood exactly why our marriage was over. The truth didn't need to be spoken. It had already been lived in my bedroom, while she thought I was safely away in another city. Some betrayals are too complete for words. Sometimes the truth comes to you, but the question is, are you ready to accept it? Write in the comments, what would you do in my place, forgive or leave? Subscribe, because there are still many stories ahead that keep you awake at night.